I live in a boring little town in Florida. It's an uneventful place, so for fun or maybe just out of pure boredom, my friend and I would meet up and take late night walks around our town. We usually met up across the street from these woods right next to a small abandoned fire station. On this particular night, my friend wanted to go explore this little path that cuts directly through the woods. It was about 1 a.m., and I thought it might make for a cool adventure, so I obliged. We crossed the street and make it to the mouth of the trail. I should mention that there was construction going on at the left-hand side of the woods, so it was fenced off, but the lights from the site slightly illuminated the trail, so we really didn't need flashlights. I had this uneasy feeling right off the bat, like we were being watched, but I chalked it up to nerves and an overactive imagination. We continued down the trail, and I start to notice weird shit like branches breaking and leaves crunching just out of our view. I tell my friend that maybe we should leave, and not 10 seconds later the lights at the site shut off. Fucking great. The moon was pretty full, so I wasn't too worried. We didn't walk too terribly far, and I could still make out the mouth of the trail. We decided to walk back, and I felt relieved. That's when I noticed it. Crouched in a bush not 5 feet away, someone was watching us. I tell my friend to run, and we book it. I can hear the person running after us. We kept running and eventually make it out of the woods and cross the street. I turn to look and I see him right in the mouth of the trail. This dude was completely naked and looked insane. He has a glass bottle in his hand and he just throws it in our direction. He then grabs rocks and other things he finds on the ground next to him and just starts wildly throwing them at us. We get the fuck out of there. We didn't stop until we made it to the gas station. I noticed that my friend is bleeding pretty bad from his right arm, and he tells me that right after I grabbed him to run, something hit his arm. Upon further inspections, I noticed that my friend had a large piece of glass sticking out of his arm. He needed 15 stitches. We called the cops and explained what happened, partly because we didn't want anyone else to get hurt, and partly because I didn't feel safe with that guy running around. When the cops searched the woods that morning, they found signs of someone living in there, and more disturbingly, bloody clothes that looked like they belonged to a little girl. I haven't heard anything since. I was quite young when this happened, about 3 or so. My older brother was 5 and my mom was pregnant with my younger brother at the time. This was in the mid-80s, so all we did was play outside all the time because that's all we could do. We lived in Alabama in a small house with an open front yard. It was midday, my mom was in the house doing laundry or something along those lines, and me and my older brother were playing in the front yard. My brother decided he was going to go get his big wheel from the back of the house and told me to stay in the front yard and wait for him to come back. Suddenly I see a black 4-door car pull up to the yard and stop. The back door opened quickly and a middle-aged woman with bright red hair hangs her head out and calls for me. "Hey pretty girl, would you like some of this candy? I brought it just for you," she says with a huge grin on her face as she holds out a handful of colorful candies. The lady sounds funny. I had never heard anyone talk the way she did, and it made me giggle. Again, me being 3, I didn't think twice and start wobbling over to this mysterious woman to get my prize. When I finally make it to her, I reach out my chubby hand to grab the candy and suddenly feel myself being lifted up and pulled violently toward the car. I look up and the woman is not smiling anymore. Instead now, she has a cold, dark stare on her face. I start kicking and begin to scream and cry. I'm unsure when, but at some point my brother had came from around the house to see what was going on, and had began to scream for my mom to help. I hear my mom yell, "Put my baby girl down," in the craziest tone I'd ever heard from my mom. Then, just as sudden as it had happened, I was being dropped to the ground on my back, and the black car with the woman in it is speeding down the street, vanishing out of sight. My mom runs over crying, asking what I was thinking, and if the woman had hurt me, and a million other questions. But I just didn't understand why she didn't give me my candy, and why she was squeezing me so hard. It wasn't until I was older, my mom told me she called the police to file a report, and found out that the woman's description and the license plate of the car matched a group of people abducting young female children for a human trafficking ring based out of Germany. 6 children in our area had gone missing in the months prior to this and were never found. This happened to me and was a very scary, life-changing event for my family. Maybe it can help save a child or help warn parents about these happenings, because even though this happened a long time ago, This sadly is still happening today. Okay, so this happened to me last year. Keep in mind this is told in the perspective of a female. I'd started school at the local community college. I was looking to make some new friends since I've never really had the opportunity before. I was the weird fat kid throughout elementary and high school. College was a chance for me to reinvent myself, to actually make friends and fit in for once. It's college. No one gives a fuck if we're weird. We're all just trying to get through to finals after all. Well, I had a class with this one kid. Let's call him Creep because that's what he was. Anyway, me and Creep had our ITE class together. I'd see him every day, but didn't talk to him much. He stayed in his corner of the room, and I sat with my friend, an older lady we'll name Jay. I had a TARDIS backpack. Yeah, I know. It's not bigger on the inside, by the way. Anyway, he saw this and said it was cool, and I said that was cool, and we talked a little bit about our interest as we walked to our next class. He was a cosplayer, as was I, and we both enjoyed BBC programs along with anime. He seemed friendly, and I went on about my day. Things got uncomfortable after that. He started showing up everywhere that I did. Mostly he would invite himself to lunch with me and my friend S. He was disgusting. We went to lunch one day, and he ordered this burger with peppers, onions, and mayo. Mayo is the bane of my existence, mind you. He didn't use napkins, the thing smelled terrible, and he wiped it on his already stained pants. It wasn't pleasant to say the least. He kept popping up places and inviting himself to lunch, and I was just beyond done with him. I have a habit of attracting weird people. I don't know why. I was just ready to cut and run if it came to it. Anyway, he invited himself to lunch with me again when S wasn't present. He said he had a crush on S, and I knew S went through a bad breakup. I told him to leave her alone, but he was insistent on me seeing if she liked him. I said no, leave her alone. He left after that, and I enjoyed my shitty spaghetti. Then the really freaky thing happened. I was leaving to go to my car one day and ran into him. We talked a bit as I was trying to get away from him, but he was insistent on talking. Eventually I tried to excuse myself, saying that I was going to my car and I'd talk to him later. He followed me. He said it was fine and walked with me toward my car. He then proceeded to tell me a funny story about him getting drunk and punching his crazy ex in the face, like that would totally impress me or some shit. I did what any normal person would do. I looked him in the eye and said no, got in my car and drove off. He fucked off and left me alone after that. That wasn't the really creepy part though. No, I learned this a few weeks ago. He killed someone before. Apparently, he got in a fight and stabbed someone in self-defense. The circumstances were more than shady though, but the police in my area does fuck all. The guy Creep stabbed someone and they ended up dying. So yeah, I was stalked by someone who'd killed another person. Ain't I lucky?